This episode is brought to you by Sappers, because we can't think of a more humane way to handle our prisoners either. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Podcast Assemble, the show where you come for your rambling geeky download. My name's Tommy, and I am delighted, as always, to be joined by my friend and co-host from across the pond. It's our resident will yielder of the pod, DL. How are you?
I don't yield any wield. I don't yield any wield. I wield any yield.
What do you do?
I would take the lashings.
You'd take the lashings.
I would like it.
Yep.
I'd be like, please, sir, can I have some more?
This is a weird way to start a podcast. I'm learning so much about you the longer we do
the
this.
Lashings, dude. I don't. Rather than getting slowly sapped away, dude.
Which would you prefer, DL? A lashing or perhaps a wrestling match with Ryan Reynolds that you might lose?
Not Ryan Reynolds, Pierce Brown.
Okay, Pierce Brown.
And I don't get it twisted, okay? I like my lashings, all right?
We're trying something new this week. We have never done a book before, so this is us stalling, I think, because we're both kind of terrified of actually doing this book. But it's a book that we've talked about a heap already on the podcast, I think. So it's called The Will of the Many from 2023, and you dig it, right?
I love it.
Yeah,
I really liked it. I don't know why we chose the most complicated book ever to do first
that's how we do it, baby.
Podcast on for literature, if you want to call it that, but we did,
and that's how we roll,
and we're gonna see how it goes.
I love it. I absolutely love it. How are you, mate?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I have taken a break from reading fiction,
right?
Even though we're talking about it,
I thought you were gonna say taking a break from being unemployed.
No, I mean I'm still
not yet.
I mean I'm not like I'm not. I might actually. Maybe I should be on the dole.
You should do it forever.
It's been long enough. I should try and get on the dole.
Man, could you? Are
too
you
much
allowed
pride.
to?
I think I couldn't do it
with that outfit on. You don't look like you should be on the dole.
This is a beautiful outfit. I'm wearing my page. Is this a page boy hat? Is that what this is called?
You look straight out of Oliver Twist.
Page boy hat.
No, it's a flat cap. It is a flat cap.
What is a page boy hat?
You'd wear in Yorkshire if you were going to pub with lads to have a couple.
Or if you were going to take the dogs out. You know, the hounds of
absolutely.
I imagine the whoever was running the hounds of Baskerville was wearing this hat. I imagine myself to be a modern Sherlock Holmes. Okay?
It reminds me of.
I'm going to go have a pint after this.
It reminds me of the Gentleman series, where they're just shooting in the backyard indiscriminately.
Yeah, that's what I love.
You've kind of got that look about you right
That's what
now.
I was just doing.
I'm great too. Thanks for asking, Dale. Don't worry about it.
No problem.
Guys, look, up top, before we get into this, I wanted to shout out, if you want to support the podcast, we don't do Patreon, we don't do all that stuff. We're not that kind of podcast. But if you buy stuff off Amazon, why don't you click the Amazon link in our description that you will see at the top of the episode description down there? That would help us out a lot. We get a kickback, so I don't really understand it. It's apparently affiliate marketing. It would really help us. All of that aside, what's been happening, DL?
I mean, you know what's been happening, dude.
Yeah, I've been
pestering me at all hours to get you back into Netflix. It's like they're 2FAing me to death. It's like 3FA. Sometimes it's like email, then text, then
they really want.
Then they're like,
kicked out your Netflix.
Yeah, and then like by the time I do the text, the link's expired. I have to redo it. Point is, it's been a Netflix fiasco, and to the point where I've had to like claim that I'm a billionaire to Netflix.
I mean, you are.
I'm not, but
dressed like that, you look like you are.
I mean, yeah, it's the modern billionaire chic. Like billionaires look homeless. The point I'm trying to make is Netflix has made it really difficult with this multiple household thing
to keep me on.
And I'm trying to keep. We're already paying like 20 whatever. It's a lot of money.
It's not cheap.
We're in the same municipal council. This should matter.
We're like a 3-minute drive away from each other.
Literally. And so I was I was like so tired of this that I was just on. Did I tell you? I was on with Netflix support, and I was
like,
"Did
you get on some poor support person?"
No, I just told them I own multiple households. I'm a very, very wealthy man. To which she was like, "Well, you can go buy another person on your plan." I was like, "No.
I'm not that.
No. The rules are a single household. My family lives in this other household. I sometimes go there. I stay there. This is." We're multiple homes in a single household here. All right.
Love that phrase.
It took me quite a lot to get Netflix to eventually stop telling me to buy another person on the thing and give me a hack to which I've been using before this podcast. Or apparently if you just like use your device on another person's Wi-Fi and watch Netflix on it and then go back.
You'll need this hack.
Yeah.
Use this.
That it'll work for, she said, at least 30 days. So we have 30 days where hopefully
perfect.
This won't be a problem.
When you leave to the UK, that's going to be really useful.
Temporary problem. temporary solution.
But I think Netflix is like the OG. So like I think I'm gonna start culling.
Yeah,
services
that
pretty
begs
soon.
the question. Like, this is basically like cable now.
Right.
We got away from cable. Now we're back. There's like 25 of them. They're all expensive,
And they're all shit.
I think you get 3.
What are you gonna get? What are you gonna
You get
keep?
3, and I almost feel like I hate saying it, but you have to have Netflix
I feel like it's the one.
just because of the sheer
What,
volume
the
of content.
girth?
Yeah, it's quite girthy. Some would say it's a mile wide, an inch deep.
I mean, it's a chode.
Yes, a very large. A very
Extremely equivalent of
large-
chodes.
Like that is the chodiest chode I've ever choded. Anyway, so I think that's got to be included. Also because of the variety, like your missus will like things on there. You'll find something you like,
Right.
Comedy, whatever.
Our For You section is just wild.
Yeah,
It is
it's
somewhere
it's
in between.
It's schizophrenic as hell.
Completely.
Yeah, but you got to keep it.
So you're thinking Netflix is
I think that's one.
Numero uno.
I think indubitably, undoubtedly, whatever company streamer has licensed HBO's content, because we can't have it here
Interesting.
or wherever you are, that has to be number 2.
Binge in Australia, you would have.
Binge in Australia, HBO Max.
Isn't that
if
a
you're
horrific word?
if you're in
Binge.
America, it makes sense.
Apparently, they're just getting rid of the Max now. It's just going to be HBO again, which
Yeah.
made so much sense.
why
in
would
the
they?
first
Why
place.
didn't they ever do that?
Because they screwed up
Yeah.
big time.
They've had like 3 different launches of this.
It's
Every
still-
time I download the app and finally can use it, like
Got a
I have to
different name.
download a new one. But point being, like that's a must, right? So that's 2.
Okay.
The third is hard. I think without even having kids, Disney Plus might be in it.
Interesting.
If you have kids, it's a guaranteed number 3.
Absolute guarantee if you
Yeah.
have kids. I don't know, for me, like I'm stuck. 'Cause I really like the Amazon content. Amazon's really kicked off for me recently. I've been a bit like mainly because I can't get on Netflix.
Yeah.
Most of the content I've been watching is on Amazon.
You've just been. What do you mean? You've been subdued,
I'm like, oh, there's really good stuff on
subjugated to Amazon. You didn't choose this.
Surprisingly, there's a lot of good stuff on there that I've managed to find somehow.
To a fade to Amazon.
Amazon and Binge for me are interchangeable. So HBO.
I think Apple TV is a guaranteed no. It's
Really?
like they got one. They got like Ted Lasso, which they stopped,
Which we've all seen.
and they have Severance, which somehow they stole from HBO because that's like the definition of an HBO show.
It's coming back.
And I'll just do a free trial that they keep offering me for.
I mean, you get a free trial every 3 months for 3 months.
yeah, so like I'll just do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I could take you on the Amazon. I just don't know that there's enough original stuff.
Well, I think it works really nicely.
If they got Red Rising, 100%.
Without question.
Lord of the Rings, Red Rising, I'd have to do it.
It worked really nicely when it was a case of you had Netflix and Disney, I think, and I had Binge and Stan, and we could just swap.
Yes.
That made so much sense because cost is evened out. We both lived sort of in the same household. You're here at least once a week.
Not sort of.
We
You
do.
have to maintain the story.
Netflix, we live in the same household.
Fucking, what's her name? Natasha from Netflix support might be listening. Okay.
Give us that 5-star, Natasha,
Yeah.
if you're there. That'd be wonderful. Yeah, I mean, you've got to keep Netflix without doubt.
Yeah.
No question to it. But interestingly, it's funny you say about that because I couldn't get on Netflix and my fiance was away this weekend.
Yeah,
So I had so goddamn much time to myself. So I actually ended up finishing Elden Ring. I was like, that's how much time I had to myself.
An entire weekend into the game.
I wouldn't say all of it. I was pretty close to the end anyway. But it was
Yeah.
just that final boss, which was an absolute bitch. But now I've got
Just
Netflix.
a
for
weekend?
that.
Jeez, that sounds like an arduous game.
Yeah, it was more than a weekend.
Yeah, I
I'll
don't
be
know if I
honest.
could.
It was a lot. It was a bloody lot. Guys, if you want to listen to us banter about our weeks, feel free to stick around. There will be time codes in the description, as always, supplied by editing genius and friend of the show, Mr. Matthew Bliss of Blissery.fm. Stick around to the end of the show. We'll give you his details then. And if you could, DL, like we're going to give this book right now on Amazon Book Reviews, how many stars would you give this podcast?
I would give 5.
5!
Yeah.
And you guys can do it right there in app. It's super easy. You can just flick on Spotify or Apple, whatever you're on. We are not going to beg you, but we appreciate it because it helps with algorithms and things we really do not understand. DL,
Yeah.
what have you been up to, buddy?
I have been catching up on House of the Dragon mainly.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So what are we in now? So you have to see episode 7?
Like whatever the most 7, yeah, whatever.
That's 7?
I think this is the last one we have coming up next.
This is 10 episode seasons.
I think it's 8 this season.
It's back to the way they did it with Game of Thrones. I was reading this just the other day.
Are you sure?
No.
I heard that it was.
Let me
I heard
Google
that
this
it
while
was
you're telling
less
me about
than
your-
last season.
Tell me about your experience so far.
Look, I think that they've it took them a while to get to the point, but they're about to. Look, I'm still enjoying it. It's not as good as last season, but I am enjoying it. Even the Damon's storyline, like, which I understand why people have issues with. I'm enjoying this the way that they're handling the characters, even the ones you're not supposed to like.
Right.
But it's just there's a lot of nothing with not as much political
My lord,
savviness.
You were right. There's only going to be 8 episodes in this season. What?
Yeah.
What if they've not achieved anything? Is this because of the writer's strike?
No, I think that this was like the like season of where the first one was the build up to the war. This was the season of is it too late? And we're culminating with yes, it's too late. And it was like that's the question for every single that's the theme of this season.
Nothing has happened this season.
Is it too late? Is it too late for Damon to make his claim to be is it too late for Rhaenyra to pull back? Is it too late for Alicent to be a good mother to her kids? Like that's the theme. And I understand that I take that criticism, but I think as far as like it could be good with nothing happening as the theme, that's what they've like intentionally done.
I don't think this has been a good season. If this is it, if we don't have at least 2 or 3 more episodes for them to do some shit, I am going to put my neck out here and say this hasn't been a good season of House of Dragon.
Well, I don't think that.
I do not enjoy. It's been boring.
I understand. There's definitely been more boring parts, but it's like still better than
can't claim
it's still better than most television.
I said of Game of Thrones, House of Dragon. It's not been a good season. It's up there. It's up
worse
there
than the
with
last season.
It's up there with the season 7.
Nah,
it is.
Nah.
For me. Absolutely.
I think it's like there has been 10 episodes
thing in the whole
of the 10 episodes, but the acting's so good. Even like
it's not enough.
Even I think that what I think I will say is there's like not a lot for too many. There's too many characters with not a lot to do.
All of them. None of them have anything to do.
But the acting,
it's the same every episode.
The acting of the ones that kill it in that is like the Aegon, who's like the king that's like now grotesque. Spoilers for if you haven't caught up. Who's been through Dragonfire? Like his acting is carrying the whole King's Landings thing. Even when he was a goofball,
he's on it for like 2 minutes every episode.
I meant in the first half, and then now like the last episode, I was like really intrigued where that's going to go. But you're right. I take it's a real criticism.
I'm really disappointed with this.
It's a real criticism.
Genuinely.
I just don't think it's as bad as you're making it out to be because it's still intentional with what it's doing. I think. Whereas season 7 and 8 were not intentional. They were just like it turned into Hollywood. This is definitely like intentional writing. It's just not as compelling as the last season was.
They needed to do anything to push the story. Like the story is exactly where they left it at the end of last season. It's not moved. Other than the fact the king got fired.
There's stuff that's happened. It's been a build up. You're right. It's been a big build up to nothing. Really.
I don't want a season of build up. This is two series I've watched this year which have just been.
But it will be a build up to something in the next episode for sure. There's going to be a big battle.
There has to be a big ending, otherwise this is a wasted season. It's wasted my life. It's wasted my life.
All right, each their own.
Okay, name one thing that's happened this outside of that one battle that wasn't even that good.
What do you mean?
What's happened in this season?
You're basically following Rhaenyra's storyline of like trying not to have a war while also re-upping her troops of dragons. Like that's the main thing.
That's an episode.
And you're also you're basically following like the fallout of all the decisions that were made in the interpersonal decisions and relationships that were made in the first season. You're seeing the fallout of that. Like basically Alicent compromising all her like parental what a good parent would do. And when you're seeing that juxtaposed against Rhaenyra, who like has a good relationship with her kids, like it's much more small stakes compared to what we're used to in Game of Thrones, which is why I understand why your criticism, but I still think it was intentionally done.
Sure. I'm gonna finish this point just saying I think my point with Game of Thrones was that it's multiple intricate stories, all interestingly woven in their own directions that all culminate at the end. It might not have culminated in the way we wanted it to. It might not have been that good a culmination, but it was a lot of different stories that you could follow and enjoy.
No, I understand that.
You could have different favorites in different areas. And this is just the same story, just told from different perspectives. And I don't think it's just this season. The
criticism is there's not enough there.
Yes, that's what
and like when I like the last episode, the part I really liked was when they were like starting to give life to the River Lords and stuff.
Right.
And they were like giving more lore and like more perspectives, like where they need more of that. Yeah, I take your point. Like they should have done that more often.
Yeah, you called out the Stark stuff at the beginning of the
like
series.
even the errands. Like we get like a scene and I'm supposed to remember like why she's even there. Like they need to do more of that. I 100% agree.
Okay, so are we carrying on recommending House of Dragon even though it's going to be a dull ass season?
Yeah.
A DAS.
Yeah.
It's been a DAS.
Yeah, you still have to watch it.
Okay, all right. Well, I did a cool thing this week. I'm only going to say one. I'll say one because we've done a bit of House of Dragon talk already. So I just did. So I watched a movie which would have fit very nicely into our anthology of movies we should have seen but haven't. And I can't believe I'm telling you I hadn't seen this movie. I knew the ending. That's why I haven't watched it for so long. But we sat down and we watched Shutter Island for my very first. Popped my Shutter Island cherry.
What'd you think?
Phenomenal movie. Unbelievable. Like I'd seen a lot about it online. That's annoyingly where it'd been spoiled for me a long time ago. So the twist at the end, right, is the key point of this that had been spoiled, and sort of the build up to that and the little things to look out for. So I was looking out
You
for
think
those
the
things.
main twist.
The main key twist of the story.
I mean, you can talk about it at this point.
Spoilers for
Spoilers for
Shutter Island from like 20 years ago.
2005?
2001 maybe?
Yeah.
It's a phenomenal movie. Like, it is. It's amazing. Leo's is absolute best. Mark Ruffalo's fantastic in it. I love the ideas built into it that he's sort of built this second personality for himself, and he's trying to play out fantasy to try and almost stay away from the grief of what he's done in killing his wife. I love it. And I love that the concept it throws at you at the end. Like, you know, he says to Mark Ruffalo, I can't remember exactly how the line goes, but effectively the idea is, does he die a good man, or does he carry on living knowing that he's a monster? And in my mind, that's him admitting that he knows exactly what he's done. He would rather have the lobotomy and effectively lose who he is to move forward and not have to think about the horrible thing he's done. But I don't know, is that your take on it?
I think that like it's an ambiguous ending for a reason.
Of course, yeah, of course.
And
I'm just saying that's my take.
No, and that is like a totally fair take. I kind of got the feeling that like you're correct, but also like knowing these diseases, I also think there's just not as much lucidity to like his thought process. So it's like, you know,
of course,
I think that's part of the fun of like how vague the ending is. Like, and it's like, you know, it's almost begs the question: does anyone that has these paranoid machinations or schizophrenia, do you know, in their in their inner subconscious, do they know, or is it, or are they sick? Like, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I guess it's like
that's the ambiguity of it.
Yeah.
And I think it's fascinating just the way it's put together and how, you know, the whole adventure unfolds around you, and, you know, Mark Ruffalo's helping him in quotation marks.
No, it's a really good concept.
So good. I love it. The whole thing was fantastic. Ben Kingsley, what an actor. Love that guy.
I don't remember.
He's the bald guy, the head shrink.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing's really well done, and how, you know, there are ramifications for the things he does. Like he beats up another prisoner, forgets about it. It's just like chef's kiss. We'll have to talk about it at some point.
I'm down.
When we get around to our Scorsese.
It's another one of our anthologies.
It absolutely is our next Scorsese one. Do you have I definitely recommend going away and checking out Shutter Island if you haven't already for this 20-year-old film. Do you have another one before we move on?
I mean, I finished The Acolyte.
Oh, did you? Wow, that's getting some shit online.
Look, I've never seen a Star Wars show that had like such high highs and then such low lows.
What were the highs?
Like the highs, like the main villain is good. The score is like as good as it's been since John Williams. Like it's really good.
Okay, music.
Seriously, it puts you like that. The high moment, like the battles are really, really, the choreography really, really cool, and when complemented with the music, like eerie at times. But then there's just like, you know, random bits that are just like, you know, everything you hate about Disney Plus Star Wars and Disney Plus Marvel.
They start.
You know what I mean? Of like the shows, like they just little bits. Where I'm like, this dialogue's terrible. Like this is not the tone of any of the Star Wars. Like, what are you doing inserting this? Like, it's just very like, it's almost like there was two writers and one really knew what they were doing and one didn't.
Like the twins of the show.
Yeah,
you'd forgotten what the twins of the show were.
I know. No, the twins. Honestly, that's also part of it. Like, I just didn't love that casting. They were a bit like goof. They were a bit like, you know, Marvel Disney Plus show.
Interesting.
They weren't like high caliber.
A bit like Young Avengers.
It wasn't very. It was very.
Wow, that's high praise. It was a bit.
It was just cookie cutter and not a lot of depth and like not great acting. But like the main villain, great.
So what was the main controversy? The main controversy was something along the lines of,
I don't know. Star Wars fans always fucking
they hate everything. Yeah. Would you recommend watching it then?
I don't know if I can unless you're an ultra fan.
Right.
Because I think
if you're an ultra fan, you'll hate it even more.
If you're an ultra fan, you will like some of the score parts. I don't think so. I think like there's parts that like ultra fans like would like, and like they'll also hate parts the same way I feel. You still got to watch it though. But if you're not, don't
watch it. I don't think I'm gonna. I've watched like 3 episodes of it. I don't think I'm gonna go back and finish it unless, you know, maybe Netflix stopped working for us again.
Well, we fixed that, hopefully.
For now.
At least for a month.
But yeah, for 30 days.
Yeah.
Guys, if there's anything we haven't talked about that you would recommend us talk about, hit us up at podcastassemble or thepodcastassemble@gmail.com. You can find us everywhere. We have a website, www.podcastassemble.com. Our details are all on there. Send us them over. We love your memes, we love your news, and we love your reviews. DL, do you want to preface our main topic for this week?
It's the main topic theme.
Of course, our main topic this week is Twatum.
Twatum!
Or as we call Twatum, the will of the many if you're not plugged in, if you're not across the Twatum gang.
Oh,
You know?
the Twatum.
The Twatum.
That sounds like some weird British London gang.
Yeah. Which is a
Twatum
book.
boys, hype.
Exactly. Which, this is a book that Tommy recommended to me after.
Oh, it blew up on social media.
Yeah, he found it on TikTok or something. I don't know.
I think so. I go on TikTok for one reason only. That's to post our content for TikTok, and sometimes look at the comments on our content, which can be really quite funny. People apparently didn't like my take on Dream Scenario. Remember I talked about the Nick Cage movie a couple of weeks ago?
People.
Yeah, we got comments.
What was your take? Was your take that it was bad?
Bad, boring movie.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? No, sorry, it wasn't. It was an interesting premise of a movie that they squandered at the very end.
Okay, fair enough.
I love Nick Cage and Nick Gray. Anyway, we're not talking about that. So it blew up on social media, and I had read a little bit about it. I read the synopsis, and it had so many sort of Red Rising type similarities in the setting and the location and all that. It just had to be done. And I burnt through this on the way up to your wedding.
I mean, 45,000 ratings on Goodreads. Like, this is.
Oh, you're ruining a thing here. I'm gonna do later on.
Oh, you pivoted. My bad.
It's all right. We're gonna get to user reviews later on.
But my point being is it's blowing up. That's a lot.
Well, do you have a stupid plot summary for this?
I do.
Before we do very short non-spoilers and spoilers.
I do. My stupid plot summary is Rome, if the plebeians were Popeye's spinach. You don't get it?
That's so random.
It's not random. It literally is.
It's fun.
It's the magic system.
It is. It is. All right, here you go. Let me give you this one. We follow our protagonist in a rigidly hierarchical society as he infiltrates the ruling class, attending Highborn High School to begin his journey towards a revolution. This is Red Rising. No, wait, what is it? What are we talking about again? There are a lot of similarities between Red Rising.
Very much so.
But this is obviously James Islington, who was known before this for his Lacanus trilogy, if I'm saying that right. I don't know if it is. Yeah. Which was, at the time, it was praised for its complex world building, intricate plot, well-developed characters. Lots of things that I think we're going to talk through in this. But before we do, I did have a slight twist on one of our favorite occasional segments we bring back to the show.
Yes.
I have adapted Goofy IMDb picture to Goofy character names. Now, you tell me. I'm actually going to keep our current MVP from Goofy IMDb picture because his Goofy character name is Elendil. And it depends how you say it. Like, if you say it like that. Elendil. And we have a challenger this week. And we have, I can't remember how you said it a minute ago, but we have Iqua.
Iqua?
Iqua.
Is that actually the main, isn't that his mate's name? Is that how he says it?
It's spelled basically Aqua.
Oh, Aqua. Yeah,
Aqua. But it said Iqua.
Aquia.
No, it said Iqua.
Equia. I basically imagined her as like Misty.
Interesting.
Because she had all the water Pokemon.
Is that how you imagine
Doesn't Misty have water Pokemon?
I don't know why I imagined her as a super goth girl.
No, I actually didn't imagine her as that. But like Aquia, her name makes me think of that. But no, I actually imagined her as like a really like almost like a stern Hispanic chick for some reason.
Right. I almost had like Hermione Granger, but like with the dark hair and
like a more Greek looking.
Or like 100%. 100%. So which is the stupider name? Equia's pretty funny.
Equia is. I like that name.
You keep saying Equia. It's I literally looked in the index at the back and it said Equa.
Well, if you say it like equal, then no, I don't like it. So Elendil wins. If that's the case.
Elendil. That's the goofier name.
Elendil.
Nice. It's hard not to compare this to Red Rising in many ways.
You gotta imagine that even when he was finished with this, which is like a really unique and I would say creative and like original piece of art. Like I think it is.
Yeah.
He's still, even knowing that, was like, fuck, did I do too much? Did I copy it too much?
I mean, I did see an interview with him actually not long after it came out, and he was saying that that fans of Red Rising are likely to like this. They would find things in this that they would like. And I find that interesting that he even acknowledges. Like,
I think he said, I've said in interviews that it definitely...
We keep saying he. I mean, James Islington.
James Islington.
The author.
Who, currently, open offer to join the
I mean,
pod.
you can come on the podcast anytime you want. It's right there.
There's been an email.
I'll tell you what worked for me with this. And it's how he writes characters with such complete, like, moral ambiguity. There are like resistance fighters in this who do horrific things, and there are like people top of the hierarchy who are doing quite noble things. I really dig the shades of grey that he plies into every single character in this, and people can and will surprise you, and not in ways that don't feel earned, because they all sit in that grey area, which someone like a George R.R. Martin does really well. And that sort of hyper focus on like capitalism, I mean, it's clearly born from that, the hierarchical structure and all of how this whole book works. I think that creates a world which is really fascinating, knowing that, even the top guy, he might be a noble person at the end of the day, and, you might get to that stage and it might be a nice dude, but you have to come to terms with the fact that he's, sapping life out of all these people. I really like that about this.
I think it definitely sets up like a premise that lets you explore really complex moral issues within characters, and
absolutely,
and like how like someone can be a part of something bad but still be good, and vice versa. And I think like that's what the best part about this book is the world building and the magic system set up a really cool critique on like what is morally okay and what isn't, and like doesn't really like tell you what the answer is, just like makes it really hard to make a firm choice.
It does.
And to make a firm statement on one way or the other. I think and like parallels that with the main character's internal struggle.
Yes.
Which is like why it culminates so well.
This is the main character.
But yeah, I think even he said, that he was inspired by this from Red Rising. And the reason I think we're making the comparison is there's a couple things. Like there's the pyramid in the society, and there's the hierarchy in the Catonian Republic or whatever it is, which is obviously modeled off Rome. Like those are very similar.
Well, it's the Roman themes that I found.
There's the Roman and Greek themes, mainly Roman in this one, but in Red Rising there's both. And then there's also just like the concept of like the main character, at least in the original trilogy of Red Rising, like being kind of like hiding his identity. Like there's a lot of similarities, and they both go to a school.
Absolutely,
that culminates in a.
That's a good point you touch on.
Like there's a lot. Yeah. There's a lot of similarities.
Do you think when Red Rising came out, he was like, "Fuck"? I was like, he was probably like halfway through writing his book, and
I'm pretty sure he said it inspired him.
Okay, nice.
But I think that like Pierce Brown might have been like, dude, come on. But like also it is original.
I mean, Pierce had made his money by that point.
Yeah, it is original.
It's all PR. Any PR is good PR. I do wonder though, like, what did you? Because I mean, I got some quite YA vibes from this, like young adult novels, like not quite as in your face as a Harry Potter or like a Twilight or any of that stuff, but they are there, and they are still there even in a Red Rising. I think Red Rising.
Do you think Red Rising?
I think it does it more sophisticatedly in Red Rising. It's got my heart to it, and I feel like it feels like a more, this can sound really dumb, but like a more adult version of a young adult novel.
No, I think it is, because the main character you follow has been married,
right?
Like
exactly.
and has like he's thrust,
super young.
He's pulled into like he's older, he's more mature than his age.
Whereas this
and then there's other characters that aren't, but
and this feels quite immature for me in this, like a lot of the time. And like he's a very rageful, very vengeful character. A lot of that kind of like ways off between that and the almost PTSD he has from his past. But at the same time, he still feels young. And when he goes to this academy and he goes to a school, that feels to me like it fits his character almost more than it does, the Red Rising team.
And I think that like it does fit him better.
Yeah.
And that's like even in Red Rising, he acknowledged, like part of the fun is Darrow even acknowledging it, like, who are these kids? Like,
yeah, right.
So like I think you're right, and by design it is more young adult for sure.
Absolutely.
It's like even the themes, while dealing with complex issues, and it's just not as like, it's not as in your face about it. It's slower. It's more. It's like there's a lot of time spent in school, and he really like seems to like and enjoy and pursue school for it's not just because he's got this ulterior mission, but also because it's like, he's like, oh, this is nice. It's challenging me. Whereas Darrow's kind of just like, I'm here to kill people.
I'm here to fuck shit up. Yeah. I'm here to fuck shit up and eat Oreos, and I'm all out of Oreos.
Yeah, exactly.
I think at a top level then, like this as a character, his goal is to infiltrate Catanian, we're saying Catanian, right? Is the Catanian Republic, He's got a dark past. He's on his secret. The thing I like about the character is, and we'll talk about it as we go through, is he's on like a secret mission to infiltrate this academy.
Yeah.
Which is simultaneously been played off against his own feelings of trying to, because he is a former prince, you find out, of a nation. He is simultaneously working against his feelings of, holy shit, if they find out who I am, they could kill me immediately. So you've got this weird juxtaposition all the way through the book of these contrasting emotions within him.
Yeah, he's pulled in a bunch of different directions by a bunch of different factions. It's not even like two. It's more. One thing I'll say is it's more complex than Red Rising, the plot. There's like 3 or 4 factions that are pulling him in different directions.
And factions within factions.
And then he is not as singularly, committed to the cause as say Darrow is. He himself is divided. Because the people that are rebelling, he thinks that the way they're doing it is not great, and it would not align to what his leadership style has been taught. And then the people that are doing the killing and the taking over, he doesn't respect them either. So he's kind of in this. You meet him in this place of I fuck it all. It's kind of like the way we are as political, as like citizens of modern America.
Yeah,
we're like we don't want either of these. Like I'm out. I opt out. He's opted out at the start of the book.
Do you think he's a little bit hypocritical though? Because like at a grandiose level, he has this view of leadership and view of how taking on this secret mission should be done, where it's peaceful and it should be done in a certain way. And yet you give him the chance to beat some motherfucker up, he's going to beat that motherfucker up. He's going to kick the shit out of them.
I don't know about that. I think he is hypocritical, but maybe not for that reason.
He's so angry all the time.
I think
it's like his one feature that runs through the whole book.
I think he's probably got a right to be angry. His family was killed.
The rage machine.
His family was like literally murdered before his eyes.
Yeah.
Sorry, we should actually, I don't know. That's not a spoiler. You're told that like literally first chapter.
Well, let's talk about pacing then. I think like before we get into like the world building and the characters, I think one thing I'd really like to call out is the pacing, because we kind of talked about this when we were talking more generally about the book and, what we've been up to and whatnot. I think this is the bit where it kind of falls down for me a little bit. It is interestingly paced. Like unlike Red Rising, you do get to spend a lot of time with Viz's pain. It's almost
It's a lot of small. It's more Harry Potter than
right, and it almost like cripples him at points. He's got this like PTSD side to him almost, which is super interesting. But this could almost be 2 books for me. Like I feel like the bits that I was really interested in kind of really rushed through. Like we're going to talk about the gauntlet and the maze as we go through this, and those are bits that I wanted to spend time in and understand. What is happening here?
Book 2.
I don't know if you're going to come back to that bit in book 2. Like it feels like a thing that was the crux of this book, and I feel like it's going to move on. Like I wanted more explanation. I don't think it was detailed enough in its explanations of those pieces. I don't know about you.
I think that he could have left like one of my things I think he could have left more like crumbs for us to like actually go predict things and like have theories. Like I think there's a lot of mystery, which is why I like this book. Because it's like there's so much going on and so much mystery and so many things that he needs to answer. But there's not a lot of hints as to, I don't think this is one of those books where when you go reread it after reading the second one, you're going to be like, oh, I should have caught that.
Right.
I don't think he did enough of that.
Agreed.
So like, to your point, I do wish he would have done more of that. But I do think that the things like, the lab, like the thing you mentioned, the labyrinth, all that, I do think we're going to get more about why that exists and what that was actually the purpose behind that in the broader scheme of things before, the cataclysm.
Before 4 times.
Yeah. But I take your point. I think from a pacing perspective, I was never not excited to pick up the book.
Same.
Which to me is a sign that the pacing is good. What I'll say about the pacing is it did feel predictable.
Okay.
Like not like the things that happened there, I was surprised, but I always knew like, okay, the next part of what's going to happen is going to happen. Like he's going to he's training. He's going to go there. Then, we need him to go research these 2 things. Somewhere in the next 300 pages, he's going to research one. Somewhere he's going to go research the ruins of the other one. Then there's going to be, they always like telegraph the next thing. Oh, there's going to be this festival.
Is that good?
He's going to go. I enjoyed it, but it was very much like, okay, here. I feel like
about that festival.
I feel like this guy outlines is my point.
Yeah,
Whereas with the Red Rising book, you're like, what the hell? Where are we? Like every chapter and I like both. They're just very different. And it's not that the book is paced poorly. It's just that the plot kind of like was very telegraphed.
It's a little bit like we talked about Furiosa.
Not the twist, but the plot. Yeah.
It's a bit like Furiosa we talked about a couple of weeks ago. You could never have seen the twist coming in this book. Like, not for 1,000
Well,
million
a lot of them, there's a couple actually you could have picked.
But when we were talking about Furiosa, that was the same thing. It was the character says, this is what I'm going to do, and then they do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't give you any room for, I don't know, like taking a side journey or making other things happen on
I'm
the
not
way.
really on the edge of my seat. I know where until he's doing something that I don't understand. Like until he's doing the thing that I knew he was going to do. Because I'm like, okay, now how is this going to work out? But not because I was not expecting you to go there. I knew you were going to do this.
Absolutely, 100%. And 50% of me thinks that might be good writing. The other 50% is a bit like, I don't know, like I would have liked a bit more mystery to those elements of it.
I think that it's definitely good writing. It's just like, will the next book be like this? No way, because it just feels like he's created this massive world. There's no way for it to be like, I don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah.
I have a couple of guesses.
We'll talk about that, I think, when we get to the more spoiler part. Well, let's just talk quickly world building then. So what do you think of this as a setting and as a world?
I thought it was really well done. I think that's one of the things that I would comment on it being like, it's like strongest part. Like I as much as Vis is like a fun character, I at times felt like he was like not fully fleshed out. Like you got a lot of
something held back.
Yeah, and like you know, he was just so good at everything all the time. Like it was a bit like you know, a bit too much sometimes. But the world I thought was like really thought out and really well architected, and like really drove home the themes that I think the book was trying to make you ask about. Like I love how the magic system is like kind of tied to the political system in a way that also like investigates the theme of like, you know, being a passive democratic citizen. All those things like tie together really well in a way that creates a really interesting world, but also like lets you investigate the theme of like, hey, if I'm just like a citizen who doesn't actually care about all the atrocities committed in my name, am I culpable?
Yes.
That's like a really interesting topic. And it's super integrated into the magic system, which is basically the concept is like, hey, the people, you know, the feudal system of people under you, you steal their energy, their will, which empowers you to do extra feats of strength and magic. And for all I know about it, I don't know anything about it.
Right. I mean, like, it's effectively an allegory for capitalism in my personal opinion. And I find it super interesting the way he does this. The one thing I don't know if this is world building or maybe even still in pacing a little bit, but the one thing I did find about this was the way he built the world and built every section of the book. Everything had to seem like it was on a countdown. Like, you know what I mean? So
elaborate, but I think I do. Yeah.
It felt like everything was a tacky 80s movie with like a watch counting down. You've got to do this in 5 minutes or you're gonna die. Everything had to be, it was like you have to get to the thing and back. You know what I mean? Like none of it seemed like it was just let's explore this moment. It was just
that's part of like why I'm like, this guy outlined. Like he knew where he was gonna go. Like that's what I think that's what I'm trying to get at with like the pacing. It's like everything was, we knew what we had to do. We knew we had to do it. We knew the stakes. Like it was never up for debate.
Yes.
Like these are the stakes. What was up for debate was what we were going to find. And all that stuff was tied more to his world building and like his lore than like the unpredictability of like a character's whim or like, you know, that kind of stuff.
A whim. I love that.
Whim.
The one thing I do love in this book actually was, and I actually, this is a gift and a curse because I wanted so much more of it, but he gave us like just the merest hint of the political intrigue. I think the way the houses were discussed, almost like political parties.
The parts of the
we'll talk about this.
We didn't call them the hierarchy.
What do you even call
divisions?
Them? Yeah, the sides of the pyramid.
It's like the politics, the religion, and that they're like different houses or organizations or military.
And the military, they're
branches,
basically where you fall in society. That to me was super interesting, and all of the political infighting between them. There's a scene in this where you have like the leader of one of the houses trying to use enemies of the state to help their cause. Yeah. And you're just like, holy shit, this is very real. And I really like that. And I'm assuming, like you said, there's going to be more of that as the books progress. This may even end up in one of these places. Yeah. I think it's set up to be really cool.
That is like one of the cooler parts about the end of the book is like the more you get, the more he exposes that to you. And this isn't like, you know, it becomes less young adulty and more like, oh, I can see where this is going.
Right.
I also think like the concept of their magic in this. Like, I don't like when like a magic system is super predictable.
Tell me more about the magic system.
You know what I mean? Like where it's like, oh, it's like all science and like 1 + 1 equal. Like then it's like kind of ruins Like I much prefer like, hey, we know Gandalf can do crazy shit, but like what can
I don't know how.
But what can he actually do? You actually don't really know. But like that, the mystique of that makes it cool. I think they they balanced that really well in this because it was like, you know how it works. You know the general concept of like, if you're higher up in the pyramid, you have more people giving you will, which makes you more powerful. But I still don't actually know what will can really do other than make you stronger.
Interesting.
And there's a bunch of like, they hinted there's a bunch of different things it could do. And I think that's like a good balance of like giving the reader some concept to work off of without like over defining it and making it calculus. You know what I mean?
It does feel like
ruining it.
Yeah. And it's interesting that the Viz character is able to work around it because he knows the intricacies of it. And if a character is only leveled to certain amount through will, he can still hurt them, whereas a regular human being wouldn't be able to. I find that kind of fun. I like that as a twist on his character.
Yeah. So I like how it's integrated into both the politics, the religion, and like the to your point, the allusion to capitalism.
Yeah.
Or I think the allusion to democracy as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, there's like multiple ways you could spin it. So I was like kind of torn, like, hey, for world building overall, it's good, but there's also a lot of times where I'm like, Viz knows more than he's letting on. Like, why don't I?
Right.
And like,
yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
Why is he just like,
I'm in your head.
yeah. Like, why don't I know more about this world if you know all this stuff? And part of it's like, oh, well, I guess he didn't, how much of it did he actually know? Because all this happened when he was a kid. But like, you can tell there is more that he knows that you don't. And you're like, just find a better way to fill me in.
Is he an unreliable narrator in any way?
I don't know. I think he's unreliable in the sense that like, he's got a very, very esteemed view of his home, which kind of just sounds like an island.
Definitely. Like
I'm sure they're honorable and stuff, but I'm like, why? But like also that they obviously know some stuff that we don't. There's stuff to be determined.
There's got to be stuff
that.
on that island that we don't know about. And so the progression of the book's pretty straightforward. He starts off as an orphan. He gets adopted by Ulcasaur, who we're going to talk about in just a minute.
Sounds like a dinosaur.
Sounds terrible.
Ulcasaur.
Sounds like something you get in your stomach.
No,
my
either a sword,
really,
or it's like
really
literally like an Ulcasaurus Rex. You know what I mean? Like,
yes, he gets adopted by this high-ranking official, effectively out of nowhere, kind of like it's a little bit. It's because he sees something in him. It's kind of one of those books. You kind of have to go with it at that point. And he is brought into Catanian life, effectively to be a spy, and he goes to train at Ulcasaur's house. He's only got a small amount of time. We're back to the time frames. Small amount of time to train, and then he goes
small
off to the
amount of time to
academy.
get to the next level. Small amount of time to get to the next ruins.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, it's a bit tired.
And then he goes to the academy where he's investigating Ulcasaur's brother's apparent death. Right. So it's a pretty simple progression of like he starts as a nothing, and now he's a young academy dweller.
Yeah, and there's a lot of nuance to it. Like I think they make it like less like it's not like, oh, he happened to fall into this guy's lap. There's like obviously other forces at play that get them to meet each other, which we won't talk about because it's like spoilers. But
let's talk about the characters then. You said you liked this. What do you specifically like about him?
No, I don't love. I love Viz's arc. I don't necessarily love Viz's characterization.
Interesting.
Because I'm like, at times I'm like, I need more about. They give it to me at the very end.
Oh, let's save some fan casting till we've done a bit of spoilers. I reckon. I'd like to know how you think about these.
Yeah, no, I've got some good ones, but
I'm excited for that.
But I do think we miss a lot of like who Viz is, and like he just kind of because we don't get enough weakness from him beyond like. Oh, a couple memories here and there, which don't actually affect his performance in anything. Like it never actually like stops.
Is that a dick joke?
No, you know what I mean though. Like
the Viagra helps, man. Like
no, but Harry Potter, his anger messes with his ability to execute sometimes.
Right.
You know what I mean? Darrow, same thing. Just get your head out of the gutter. Whereas Viz is like, oh, this sucks, but I'm still perfect at everything.
Yeah, and I'm just going to beat this guy up and everything's fine.
It never actually negatively affects him.
That's what I mean about his rage.
He needs to be like, I think he needs to have a weakness, like show a weakness from his past that actually affects an outcome that he has to then get over and learn from. Like that's what
I don't think the PTSD has ever affected him in the moment. So like he's never been in like you say, in a situation where, I don't know, he's in a fight or something and his PTSD takes over and he actually gets beaten for once because he just wins.
Yes, that's my point. Like there needs to be a cost to like his weakness, and it doesn't feel like there was.
I do like the idea that you were talking about of him being forced between, you know, trying to going to the academy and enjoying it and finding out maybe this is kind of a cool thing, but also trying to hide his past at the same time.
Yeah,
that's a really cool dichotomy in the book that I think, you know, actually works really well for this character.
Yeah, and I think it's like his arc is really well constructed because it's, you know, his internal dialogue is he starts in a place of I don't want any of this. I hate all parties. I want to run away from it. And then his external dialogue has to be in conflict with that because
he's a good actor. Yeah,
because he has to basically pretend that he is somebody who, you know, is a part of society, isn't this hidden person and will help, you know, society or whatever they call it, the hierarchy moving forward because his sponsor is there. And then
his ulcer's there.
Ulcer's there. And so his internal dialogue is against what he's doing externally. There's a conflict there. So and then then that slowly progresses like him to be actually in conflict. Like actually this guy isn't that bad, and neither is this school in a lot of ways.
And that's the gray I was talking about.
Yeah, but some of this, and then it basically all culminates in him making a choice externally at the same time as the plot plot action culminates. So I think it's like that's when the arc is done really well.
Who's your favorite character outside of this?
It's got to be the Eden or whatever his name is. Iden?
I said Iden.
The one that can't speak well.
The one who almost pretends he can't speak the language.
Yeah, not him. He'd be my second. Probably Lenitistia or whatever.
She's great.
I think she's my favorite. Lenistia, who's like his like blind trainer.
Yes.
Who's mysteriously blinded because of something that happened in the academy years ago, which is a big part of why Viz is there in the first place.
She's so cool.
Yeah, she's a badass.
Absolutely,
she's kind of like Daredevil vibes,
right?
If it was
I'm so
a woman.
glad you said that out loud because that's what my head was trying to wrap itself around. Yeah, she absolutely does. She does the most with not that much in the book. Like
she got like a good chunk in the middle. She's like a main character for like the first, like the second
in the middle bit,
quarter.
There's a middle bit.
Yeah, like a whole part. There's like 4 parts. A whole part is like her and Viz, and she's like in every bit of it. But
and she's just so like
strong presence in that bit.
Right.
Yeah.
She brings a lot for what
like for only having like a fourth of the book. She's like kind of like one of the stronger, you know, you take a lot from her.
Absolutely. And so she works with Ulkasar and she's sort of like one of his mates from school. And he asked Lenistia to train Viz. And just the way she does it, she's so brutal. And there's no give to her at any point in this. I love that. I like a character like that who is really firm in their beliefs and sticks to them regardless.
Because we can't help but compare this to Red Rising. This is the bit that like I think Red Rising missed.
Maybe.
Like he gets good
he got the Matrix thing.
He gets good in like 2 chapters.
Yeah. They just
whereas this was like a whole like you really felt for him. You're like, dude, this was getting his ass kicked. Like like he earned that. Like if they didn't do that and he was so good for the rest of the book, you'd be pretty annoyed.
Oh, right.
It'd be way worse than it already is. You know what I mean?
I think that as well that almost like pushes the fact forward that he is a Gary Sue because he just gets good quick. Like it's like trying to play. Imagine playing Elden Ring and you just get good immediately. You beat the last boss.
I get your point, but imagine like they did what Red Rising did and gave it like a chapter or 2 instead of like a whole part. You'd be even more. The only reason it's like partially acceptable is because how much time they spent highlighting how much he was getting his ass beat.
I think the thing with Red Rising is because he goes through this whole bodily transformation, you can almost believe that he just gets something, like he gets all these implants in him and stuff. You can almost believe that he has a memory implanted in him as well. You know, memories implanted as well. And I like that's the only way that I accept that part of the book.
He just like downloads the world.
Right. It's the Matrix.
I
know Kung Fu.
I get that. I just mean, and also the other point I was going to make in the same vein is like, during that time, you get a lot of internal dialogue about his feelings. Of like, you just get more of like, he's weeping.
I think,
and you get that whole section in Sus where he like really does weep about his past, which I think was my favorite part of the book. Where you don't really get, you know, Darrow's kind of like, he moans about it, but he kind of moves on pretty quick.
You get a lot of internal dialogue about his former wife, which I think that's his anchor point. And he keeps coming back to that, which I really enjoy. I think my favorite character in this book might be Viridius. Now,
Viridius is pretty cool.
Such an interesting character. So you find out that Viz has been taken on by Ulkasar to go on this mission to the academy, and it is to basically trail Viridius, who is the head of the academy, and find out what he's up to, like at a very basic level.
Because there's a very, very, he suspects that Viridius was involved in his brother's death.
Right. And but Viridius is this, you expect to meet him, and I expected to meet him as like the quotation marks bad guy of the piece, and he's a bit shifty, basically the Snape of the piece. That's what he is to me in this. That's what I thought he was going to be.
He didn't like feel like Snape.
No, that
was your expectation.
That was my expectation coming
in.
into meeting him at the academy, and you meet him at the academy, and you're like, holy shit, this guy. He's basically a rock star. He's super chill. He's really nice. He's super charming.
He's being earnest.
Right. He's always really like honest with this as well, it seems. So I like that as another shade of grey.
He was written perfectly.
You've got this bad guy who you all of a sudden are like, this is the coolest guy. Yeah. How is he A, the principal, and B, supposed to be the bad guy? You can't get along with it. But I think that also makes you question things that are happening around this in the book more as well, including, Ulkisor, which I think is a really strong part of the book.
I think so too. And I also think like everything you think, like the cool part about Viridius is like, it feels like everything, your expectations are like flipped on their head.
Yeah.
But then you're still like questioning, he's so earnest that you're like,
it's infectious. Yeah.
Is there something, is he actually faking this?
Or is he acting?
Or is he
absolutely.
And the way it turns out, you're both right. I think, like, which is like how good a gray character should be. Like when you've written it perfectly, like both feelings have truth to them.
Absolutely.
I would say.
So let's just quickly spin through a couple of others then. Calidus is like his best mate.
Yeah.
Seems pretty nice. Equa, who didn't win Goofy character name.
Equa, who is probably one of my favorite characters though, as far as like
she was interesting.
Out.
Yeah. I thought Amissa, who was sort of the love interest, was pretty one-dimensional to me.
She was good. She just like, it wasn't much other than like, you read enough of these teenage love sequences. It was better than Cho Chang.
In a way, in a way though, like a lot of, and from the very beginning, I was like, is she going to betray him? And that was a theme that from the moment we met her, I was constantly waiting for the betrayal all the way through. And we'll obviously talk more about this when we're in spoilers, but like the fact that she was and it's a class system in the school as well. So like the higher kids aren't supposed to talk to the lower kids. They're supposed to stick
really
to
hard to get into a higher class.
But she was super happy to talk to him when he was in the lower classes. So it was, for me, I was constantly like,
every character in this, that's part of why it's so good.
And
every character you're like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that makes it really cool. Talking about Equa, she is part of one of possibly my favorite action scenes in the whole book. We'll talk very top level at action scenes. The one in the Colosseum type piece.
Yeah, very cool.
I think he does action really well, James Islington.
There wasn't that much of it.
No. And that's why it really stands out when it happens.
Yeah.
So there's the scene, I think, when he has to fight one of the pupils hand-to-hand combat, which is it's a bit weird the way it's explained. He's almost got like magic armor on.
Well, like that was my one complaint. Like I think he needs to do a better job of explaining some of these things because it like takes me a long time to figure out what the hell
Same.
Like with the labyrinth and the thing he wears. I was like, what is that?
Yes.
I had to Google it to figure it out. And then
I just had to guess. I was like, I don't know what.
And then eventually, you hear it.
I just imagined Thanos' glove.
Yeah. I didn't even know what I was imagining. I was confused. And then it was particularly bad with that weird, like it just felt unnecessarily complicated.
Right.
Like that was like, why don't you just have them duel regularly? Why did you need these weird?
Just fight, guy.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I think when you got to it, and the way he explains emotions in the moment of like an action scene, I think that's what makes it stand out for me. Mm. When you're talking about a Red Rising or even maybe like a Harry Potter, it almost becomes a bit detached. Like, yeah, the rage is there. You're still like, Darrow is still full of anger, but it's almost more like he is doing it like a military person. He's just like shit. Whereas this dude's like, I'm gonna fuck you up.
I don't remember that, but like I'll take you on it. I do remember that like that scene in particular, he was super angry because he'd been like basically screwed for like a whole quarter where he's just stuck in the dum-dum class because this guy because he's basically like because of his racist guy.
Yeah.
And so I think like that was like in particular
There's
meant
a bit of
to be like
in there too, isn't there?
Yeah. It was like, hey, like I'm gonna beat my way out of this.
Yeah.
Like literally physically, like go full Darrow. But like, I agree that like he made it more complicated, and
I'd say rage is one of the tones and themes of the book, to be perfectly honest with you, I would think personally, along with rebellion, sort of revenge, power and control. Any others?
I think
there's a lot.
it's basically like willful ignorance is complicity. Or like,
I love that.
You know, like the old like Nazi, like I just pressed the button. I just, you know, I just didn't do it. Like if you don't do anything, you are doing something.
Yeah, right.
Seems to be at the very least a position he finds valuable enough to investigate.
Really exploring that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess autonomy and free will kind of sits in that bracket.
And like what is free will when the other choice is like death?
Yeah.
Like it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, like, is that really a choice?
Do you have 3 best and 3 worst?
Of course I do, man. I think the magic system is awesome and integrated into the world in a really cool way that helps you critique like modern.
I have the magic system. I find it.
Yeah.
And the parallels to capitalism. Oh, yeah. Beautiful.
I love the side characters and the dean. Like everyone.
Like the dean.
I think they're really like great characterization. Viridius, all those people, except for like Viz. Like Viz had. It's not even fair. He had really good stuff. It's just I wanted him to be weaker at a few times.
I just wanted him to get some comeuppance. That's the thing that a lot of stories have. He should have his comeuppance at some point. Like, and I get it.
When was it for him?
That's what I'm saying.
I don't know if there was.
There was a part in the book.
It was just really hard for him to get into class 4 or whatever it was.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go on. Sorry, you were saying.
And I enjoyed the level of mystery.
Okay.
Like, there's just so much mystery in this series, and you know that this could be one of those ones where like when you actually get it, it doesn't pay off as much because like you just made everything so vague and mysterious.
Yeah.
But for now, I'm intrigued.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got the magic. I thought the system was fantastic again. Yeah. Just mirror you on that. It is a very seductive world that he's built here. You know, like you say, I burned through this. Absolutely. You know, in 2 weeks. This is a tome. This thing, you could like murder someone with this. It's so
really big. And I'm telling you, the font is very thin compared to like Red Rising. I compared them. It's like probably each page probably has 20 to 30% more.
Yeah. I mean, stuff. Like I complete openness. I'm not the fastest reader in the world. And I just burned through this book. And the final one was just the shades of grey from the character, from a character perspective. Just really like that. It just makes you unsure about it. Question everyone. Like who's good, who's bad, like what, you know what I mean? Like everything's interesting.
Yeah. There's something to be said about like the double agent vibe and like the multiple factions and like not like throwing so much at the reader where you're almost as overwhelmed as he would be. And you really, and if you couple that with like a really gray cast of characters that all have like some legitimacy to what they believe,
which we'll talk about,
I think is, you've got a good recipe.
Okay. Worst. I
already talked about one of them. I just wasn't engaged with him enough as like as a real person.
Yep.
It took until Sus, and even then he didn't struggle with anything. He was actually quite effective there too.
Yeah.
It was more just like the touching on his past that gave me like a little bit more humanization to him.
A bit sus, wasn't it?
It was sus. Lots of mysteries, but doesn't feel like lots of breadcrumbs. It's like the double-edged sword. Like it doesn't feel like he left a lot of things on reread. Like, you know, for the Game of Thrones fans, Promise Me Ned. Like, you know, the blue flower and the ice wall. There's a lot of little great foreshadowing in A Song of Ice and Fire that I don't think we got in this, but I guess time will tell. And then I don't love how they handled the love interest like tension. Like I liked the buildup, but the way they handled it at the end, and I can't talk about it because it'll be spoils. We'll wait till the end, but there's a couple things I would do differently. Yeah. They kind of like built this thing up and like this crazy twist and then just released the tension right away within a page later. And I was like, why wouldn't you have that carry over into the next book? I
have the YA tropes as well. I think he does lean on them quite heavily. Yeah. I think he does it more subtly than some do, but they're definitely there. I appreciate this is going to be a series, but I think aligned to what you're saying about Viz never had his comeuppance. He never had, he never had a moment where he had to learn almost. Like, he didn't feel like he had a real strong arc in this book. I feel like that could have been better. And I just wanted more of the maze. Like, give me the labyrinth. Give me that.
There's a lot of the maze, dude.
I feel like there's a lot of...
Not the main maze.
There's a lot about talking about the maze, but there's not a lot of doing the maze.
They do the maze, like, a lot.
Okay, all right.
They do it at least, not the real maze.
Give me more maze.
Yeah.
Quickly then, let's talk about the critical reception. You've already seen what it is on Goodreads out of 5.
I didn't see how many stars it was. I just saw
out
how
of
many
5.
reviews. I'm sure it's like a 4.
It's a 4.6.
Oh, wow.
Pretty good there. What about Amazon reviews? Same again, out of 5. All these are out of 5.
4 or 5.
4.7 on Amazon reviews.
Oh, wow.
Finally then, Audible. What do you think the fans of Audible think of this?
I mean, at this point, I gotta say 4.8.
It is 4.8.
It's like, 3 points is a trend line.
4.7 and 4.8.
Yeah.
It's absolutely that. I guess we then do our rating system, which is this better or worse than Aquaman 2018? The most average piece of media we know, which doesn't really work.
I feel like
this,
when we do
but-
books, we should like change it. Like,
Well,
what's
I'm
the
gonna
most
ask a different-
average?
I'm going to ask a different question in a minute. So
What's the most average like good book? I would say Feast for Crows. Is it better or worse than Feast for Crows, Game of Thrones, Book 4?
well, that can be our question.
Okay.
Is it better or worse than Aquaman 2018?
I mean, it's better.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
It's better than that. Yeah, okay. Feast for Crows. I haven't read Feast for Crows yet, so I'm not.
It's the most average of
it?
like good fantasy books, and it is
Well, let me ask you
definitely
this one,
better.
Is this better or worse than your favorite Red Rising?
Or my least favorite.
No, just the first one. As in
Oh,
Red Rising,
the first book?
first book. Because for me, that's probably the lowest point of it, I'd say.
No, I rate Red Rising the book probably like 2 or 3 like top 2 or 3 of the 7 books. For me.
Okay.
3 actually. I would say it's not better than Red Rising. I really like Red Rising.
Good.
Yeah.
I probably liked Red Rising slightly more, but it's very close. I do think I think just the more adult themes of Red Rising made it stand out for me.
I just think it's really hard to like not to say this is better than Red Rising when this obviously was inspired by Red Rising
in some ways.
so much.
Absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
so look, it's really, really good. I enjoyed reading it as much as
and that's what you want.
Will it have as much reread value? I don't think so.
I don't think this one will have so much reread value. Let's do some quick spoilers then. Spoiler time, big time spoiler time.
Yeah, let's do it.
I mean, I don't want to go too deep into this, but I guess
You can't really help it.
the main part is he faces the maze at the end and he wins.
So like the main part is like this maze that they've been there's like the plot is super intricate. It's actually way more intricate than Red Rising.
Yeah,
it's very different in that way. They're like the maze that is supposed to like be a good measure of how well you will handle holding the will of others.
Yes.
Which everyone that's like older than him, Leticia, his trainers, all agree, has been introduced recently into the academy. Yes. And she's like, hey, this is a really good, whatever it is, it's a good way of testing how you'll handle will. They're very similar, which again is like breeds some theories on how they'll explain the world later. That is also a replica of something in one of the ruins that he's been told to investigate because he thinks it's tied to Olascor's brother's death. Like he's basically like, if you don't do this, I'll throw you in the zapper. I brought you out of the sapper. I brought you out of poverty because this is your mission. Because I thought you were capable.
From now on, that's way more fun.
Zappa. And so you have to do it. And what he eventually discovers is there is a maze in one of the ruins of like the pre-cataclysm civilization that you can run, but you actually
can't hide.
You die by storm of black sword,
whatever they are,
metal things.
It was creepy when that.
What do they call them? The Reapers or something?
Kinda.
I don't remember. They call them something else. So that is like the central mystery is that is why that exists. That is the change that's happened in the academy. The academy actually moved to this island a few years before. That is why, because they're trying to get more students capable of conquering this maze to basically figure out what's behind it and understand what happened to the pre-civilization. So once he gets to the maze, there's it's really almost impossible to explain, but there's a gate to other worlds.
The ending, which I remember saying to you was like, I had to read this 3 or 4 times when I first
I read it once, but
the problem was what happens at the very end of the book is the book gets to a specific point.
Yes.
And then it repeats itself 2 more times, but different things happen from a specific point onwards. And it's only like 10 pages. Like it's not a lot.
But you're like, what the fuck?
And you are literally like, is this like a typo? Like what's happening? And then the ending.
Because the book is ended. Like the book, like the point that you go to has ended and you go back to it at the end of the book.
And what you find is that he has split himself or has been effectively replicated into 2 other worlds.
It's like software.
So now there are 3 versions of this in 3 parallel universes all work at the same time. And like when that clicked with me, it kind of blew my mind a little bit. I was like, holy shit, this is awesome.
It blew my mind, but it was like, I had just listened to that
tiny little mind.
I had just listened to that podcast about what did I say? The Joe Rogan one I brought up a few weeks. Thing? Not even string theory. It's like, well, I guess it's tied to it, but it's like simulation theory.
Oh yeah, nice.
Where it's like just like different versions of the same world running in different places. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, is he kind of going for like a play on that, but in fantasy?
Yeah.
And
it's got elements of that.
It was cool. I liked it.
And it's interesting that 2 of the characters have lost an arm. One of them managed to keep his arm. There's
Yeah.
all these subtle differences between them
Yeah.
in what happens to them after. The big ending of the book is there's a kind of an action scene where he kind of goes full zombie for some reason.
Well, there's a lot of mystery that we'd have to clump, but like basically,
And that's what I liked about
yeah.
it. Like, I think the ending, as bombastic as it was and interesting, and it introduced new things even in the ending. You were like, oh shit, it left a lot to be.
There was
to
very
be
few
questioned.
answers.
Yes,
You basically learn that, like, because for half the book you're like, what is Obidium and Lyceum? Because he stumbles into this
Yes.
ruins and like all these zombies impaled people that are kind of like look like they're on sappers but like different.
yeah, and
Like
dead.
it's like and dead like wake up when he touches
Very
something
dead.
and do some like death chant like Obidium and Lyceum and they just like repeat them. It's quite scary actually. When I was
Yeah,
reading
one more
it at
time.
night, I was like, ooh.
and
And so you're like, you figure out that that's just like these ruins are like gates to other worlds.
Yeah.
We don't know what's about those worlds, and we find out that while Viridius was very nice and earnest and truthful about his intentions with Viz and the fact that he didn't have anything to do with Caesar's death, he was not very truthful about a lot of other stuff, and he's been basically killing students by giving them the task of the top tier students
Trialing
to go
the maze.
trial the labyrinth to get more and more people across the gate.
Does this make you want to watch Labyrinth with David Bowie?
I always want to watch Labyrinth. So yes. The blood, and so he gets stabbed by one of the zombies. He gets a blood disease.
Yeah.
We don't know what that is. We find some other weird guy that's like another faction that like his mom / Olisker's fake wife was in league with, who's from like a different world and can teleport.
But he also that's another thing.
There's so much going on.
He also so the brother that we believe is dead of Ulkisar is
alive in another
universes.
world.
So the question is he only alive in one of the universes? Is he alive in two? Like, so
I think he's dead. He's dead.
He's dead in the main
main one. Yeah.
Yes. But that opens up so many more questions.
Yes.
And what I like about this is it is setting up perfectly to be an expansive, growing series.
How big is it going to be?
It could be huge, and we're going to talk about that in Trivia True or False. So you just hang on with that question for just 1 second. Do you have any sort of theories, any questions, things that are top of your mind for the end of this book?
Yeah, I mean, like, what's the deal with the green guys being stabbed by the obsidian blades
Stabby,
that are
stabby,
zombies? What happened pre-cataclysm? Everything about this pre-cataclysm world seems to be some kind of test of will.
Yes.
Unintended.
Yes.
Whether it be the maze or even after the maze, a bunch of guys trying like weird zombies trying to attack you, and it's like, hey, can you beat them? It's like another test.
Yeah.
Viz was not prepared for that one.
No, he was not.
That was really creepy when he's like writing on his hand, on his own hand. What's the deal with the political side? Like, did
That's
Viz
where I
make
wanna
the
go.
right choice? What's the deal with Dad? Was he actually there?
What's the deal?
Was the dad actually
you went
there?
Italian there for a second.
Was he in a dream? Because the boat thing is there.
Yeah, that
like,
was-
there's so much going on. Like,
Yeah.
I honestly, it's too much to keep track of. I'm like, how was he gonna close this? It almost feels like Lost.
I'm excited to see where this
Yeah.
goes. So hypothetically, then, as a final question,
Do you
to
have anything? You're saying you wanted to talk about the.
You just said everything that happens at the end of this book.
No, what happens with the?
I think for me, it's the political aspect. I
Yeah.
want to know more about that.
the
But
dad and the census or whatever.
But then when you start, for me, I think it's almost, you could split it into two. I could have a book that's all the magic and the will and the all of the bombasticness that's happening with that. But also, I would have loved it if this was just a political satire and like it was Dune, right? Like, if it was just that and you had the elements of the different houses and they were fighting and it was actually a big conspiracy about the brother, and that would have been awesome on its own.
Yeah,
This could have gone either way and I would have been happy.
I kind of feel like it will do both, but it's like that's going to be so hard to have.
Well, that's where I'm gonna
Yeah.
finish, because I think this book is going to do one of two things, and I'd like to know your opinion on this very
Yeah.
quickly. It's either going to end up being a book where you skip, like Game of Thrones, from perspective to perspective, but different versions of this in different universes, or
Must.
you're just going to have to travel through one timeline and then come back and find out everything's happened with the other ones later. Like, how do you keep up with all of it?
I feel like it must be the point of view thing, because like, what's the point of introducing us to the world if you're not going to show it?
Unless there were inflection points where similar things happen in each reality to him.
Like, I guess like, the question is, are we dealing with different realities, or
Yeah.
are we dealing with like the way you get to a different place?
Okay.
And like the way you get to a different place is replicating yourself
Or
and
consciousness. Even.
Yeah, like it was replicating your consciousness, and the only way you can get, and can you get back?
Yeah. Well,
That's the question.
Can
you connect?
And is he going to bring his consciousness back together? Like
Yeah, I
that's
don't
the
know.
question. Is he going to? Yes, I find the whole thing like it's poised perfectly to be.
It's just like so much. It's wide open. It's like it must be intimidating to do, but he's apparently done.
He's apparently finished,
finished
the first draft. Yeah,
fair enough.
So let's do some quick fan casting then, because my brain always goes to like, how do you imagine these characters when you're reading them? Because I actually found Viz really difficult to fan cast. I actually had to steal someone else's because for me, he's equal parts fierce and rageful, but also quite small. I read him as quite a small character to begin with. Like he obviously bulks up a little bit in the training, but I wasn't 100% sure how to.
Yeah, I read him as like, I didn't read him as like this like big dude, but I didn't read him as small. I just that's partly why it was so hard for me to be like, why are you so good at everything? Be bad at something. Because I'm like, you're not meant to be like the biggest dude. You're not the smallest dude. You're just really well trained, but training, only goes so far. I had Tom Holland.
Okay.
So I guess I did read him as small. I mean, I guess I did.
I think Tom Holland feels too old for me. Like, as in
young now, you can make him look.
Well, that's why I went for Timothée Chalamet. I went for the easy one.
Aren't they both young?
Chalamet, like it's more that skinniness, that readiness. It's the skinny Spider-Man. I don't want a buff Spider-Man. I want a skinny Spider-Man.
I had Timothée Chalamet as a Calidus.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, but also the sex education guy, which I did steal.
Oh, I like that.
As the Calidus, I stole
my
that.
Calidus, for me in my head when I was thinking about him, it was very much the same way Cassius is described. I don't know why. Maybe because the names just vibe with the similarities.
Yeah, you keep reading.
I definitely think they're read. They're built differently in how they're described, but like that's just kind of how I thought of him. Like
Cassius is supposed to be like the hottest man alive.
Yeah, he's not that obviously, but like as in. But I feel like that character's written to be kind of like almost hiding how good he is at everything, literally, because of the political situation. And I feel like he is that, but like he will pull his hoodie up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think about like an Ulcasaur? I think we're going to really different in this.
Ulcasaur.
The ulcer.
Ulcasaur. I honestly had like a Brad Pitt.
Did you?
Like a good, but maybe not so good looking.
Interesting.
But like that era of movie star.
Right.
But like Brad Pitt's like too good looking though. Like, you can be too good looking for a role.
I had a very different version of this in my head.
He's a military. He's big.
I had him as more of a military dude. So
Josh Brolin, maybe.
So I had a young Josh Brolin.
Yeah, that would.
I had between actually. So like, and I don't know why.
He's too old though.
So that's why I said young. In my head though, I pictured him as black when I was reading him. I don't know why.
I could see that.
So I had like
that could also be like Idris Elba.
I had a Winston Duke, so the guy who plays M'Baku. So like he's big. I pictured him as big. And like, if you could imagine Winston Duke, but almost like, his hair's super cropped. He is like military-esque. I think he's got that. I think
all four of those I could see, or even who's the guy that plays Punisher in the.
Oh, really?
You could see I think any of those guys could play this role. Like this role, I think is an easier one to cast.
I see him as better looking than John Bernthal. Not that he's not a good looking bloke, but
John Bernthal's good looking. You're right, but there's a roughness to him.
Yeah,
he's not as clean. He's more clean cut.
Yeah,
that's why Brad Pitt made sense to me.
But what about Lannistia?
Mine, I feel like I'm not gonna lie, is the one that basically like doesn't get casted. That you hear like, hey, this person like auditioned but didn't get it. And you're like, I could see it, but I could see why they didn't get it.
Yeah,
Zoe Barnes.
Okay.
I'm like, I feel like she's there, but it's not perfect.
She's a good one. I just had Jennifer Garner because she was obviously
she's better.
She was obviously in Deadpool and Wolverine last week, so she's top
too
of mind.
Old though. I think she's better for like the Sedosha character.
I think I had them in my head as a little older than maybe they were.
Well, I'm pretty sure she's the same age as like the brother, not Ulaskor, so he's older.
I don't know. I just think in my head I pictured them a little older, maybe.
Yeah.
I pictured her like
30,
but like muscular, like Jennifer Garner.
It's not too far off.
Give me that tricep workout.
But I think Jennifer Gardner's like 50, and those triceps still look great.
They look amazing. What about Viridius?
I had there's so many good options for this one.
There's a lot of good ones.
I had the guy from Hunger Games.
Which one?
And also in he's recently in Peaky Blinders, but you don't watch that. Sam Claflin.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I see that. I went for a James McAvoy type, like really charmingly good looking and handsome. That's how I got.
Yeah,
that.
but I think neither of these guys are handsome enough. But I like your
They're either too handsome or not handsome enough. Like, make up your
personality
mind.
casting.
Well, let's just quickly finish these then. So what about Sedocia, who is also Relucia?
I think this was my best one, was Charlize Theron.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. I wanted her to be really, really beautiful, but also quite hardy. So
Yeah.
I went for like Rebecca Ferguson, because she's obviously
From Dune.
good in the
Yeah.
Dune, awesome in the Mission Impossible movies. Did you have any other fan castings? I only had one of them.
I think I had the guy that plays Indel, Jacob Elordi.
Oh yeah, okay.
Indel's
Yeah.
like
Like that.
the best student of like
Yeah.
the highest ranked one.
Yes.
Very like cut from the cloth of like the highest military dad, like most powerful family.
Ooh,
in
Speaking
the
of
thing.
Viridius, what about a slightly older Robert Pattinson?
Robert Pattinson's perfect.
He's a good one for
He's
that.
actually perfect. He's I think he's the right age.
He's
That's actually the best one I think we've done.
the only other one I had was
He would play it so well.
He'd be great at it. And
Yeah.
he was the young,
Yeah, he'd play it
handsome
so
Harry
well.
Potter guy. I only had Amissa, who I would have had as Daphne Keane, who's also top of mind because
Yeah.
she was obviously in Deadpool and Wolverine.
Amissa was like, who cares? Find someone unknown.
Right.
I had the Edwin or whatever, Alexander Ludwig from Bad Boys 2.
Oh,
that
yeah.
guy, but I think he's too old now.
He's too old now.
Yeah.
Too big as well.
Yeah.
He's massive.
He's supposed to be though. This guy's from the mountains.
That's actually fair. Let's do a bit of trivia, true or false. I had to really scratch this because this wasn't a movie, but let's see how you do. DL, trivia true, trivia false. James Islington cited one of his writing influences as Patrick Rothfuss's Name of the Wind. Is that true or is that false?
I mean, he put it on the cover. It makes sense for the school bit. There's enough school that he could have been influenced by it. Other than that, the tone of the prose, not a lot else is similar. I would say true, but I don't like the comparison that much, to be honest.
It is true.
Yeah.
Among other influences, he
Yeah.
enjoyed the writing of Patrick Rothfuss's Name of the Wind.
Yeah.
Trivia true, trivia false, DL. Early drafts of the book were tied to a more feudal system, with influences of feudal Japan being key inspirations. Is that true or is that false?
False.
It is false. But the pyramid structure or concept was inspired in part by a series called Rune Lords by David Farland, the magic system that stuck in his head. And it was sort of based on a more feudal system in that world. So, yes, it had a more feudalistic feeling to him based on the books he'd sort of read and was inspired by.
Yeah.
But the Japan bit I just made up for fun.
I mean, it is still kind of feudal. It's just like the amount of people below you are what produce, I guess it's like a basic concept.
Right. Okay, two more then. Trivia
Yeah.
true, trivia false, DL. James Islington has stated that he's very careful not to refer to his series as a trilogy, as he wants the arc to come to a natural conclusion. Is that true or is that false?
Sounds true.
It is.
I mean, if I had this many fucking things in the air, I would definitely not be committing to any number of books.
He said he's contracted for 3, but he's going to see how many it takes, which I
Okay.
think is very cool. And finally then, trivia true, trivia false, DL. After hearing how an impassioned email from a fan was rebuffed by his publicist, James has vowed to come on Podcast Assembly in a future date. Is that true or is that false?
Fucking manifest, baby. That's
I
true.
manifest the love. Ultimately, I'm really
Manifest.
glad we got into this book, man. Like,
Yeah.
I just got, I think it's got so much potential. I hope he doesn't do a George R. R. Martin and just seize up and not be able to take on any of the great ideas. It's
He
got
seems to be
a lot of
going. He
potential.
seems to be doing well,
He seems to have finished
which is
the
like
first
really
draft.
impressive. It'd be so intimidating to be like, okay, now what? Like, I'm trying to write like my first book for fun, and like that's hard. Imagine like actually being successful and having that many plates in the air and being like, okay, like where do we begin?
How do we do this?
Yeah, like really impressive.
Brilliant. DL, do you want to wrap up the show?
Yes, dude. Of course I do. You can, if you really liked this podcast and you're intrigued to read this book, well, I hope you didn't listen to the spoilers section, but you can go to our Amazon page.
Over.
You can go to our Amazon page and buy the book using our affiliate link. So go do that.
It's literally
in the notes.
episode
Yeah, it's
description.
in the notes in the
Put it right
episode
at the
description of the podcast. A big thank you to Matthew Bliss for editing and mastering this week's episode. If you'd like Matt to be a part of your podcasting team, get in touch with him on business@mbpod.com or head to mbpod.com to find out more about his services. If you want to hear his work, listen to Coffee with a Podcaster, short thought pieces.
It's back, baby. He's got a new one out this week, I believe.
Oh, the drop on thought pieces and topics on podcasting shared over coffee.
Very
Just a big
wholesome
coffee.
content.
We love that.
And while you're there, you should give Mr. Matthew Bliss a 5-star, as we would love you to for us as well. We'd appreciate it if you do it in your
We
podcast
would.
capture of choice. You're right there. We won't hammer you with those details. DL,
Yes.
Thanks for sticking with it, mate.
Of course, man. This was a tough one. If you followed it, good job.
I think we did great.
But it was a good book. We hope you check it out and let us know what you think. Until next time.
Buy on Amazon.
Salut.
Hello, baby.